Mitchell Foundation Gala was the kind of event most people only saw in movies. Destiny Williams stood frozen at the entrance of the grand ballroom, her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her throat. Everywhere she looked, there was something more stunning than the last. Towering floral arrangements in gold and ivory. Waiters gliding past with silver trays of champagne. Women draped in gowns that cost more than some people's yearly salaries. Men in perfectly tailored suits discussing business deals worth millions. And the chandeliers. Good Lord, the chandeliers. They hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls of crystal, casting everything and everyone in a warm, golden glow that made the whole room look like heaven itself. But Destiny was not looking at the chandeliers. She was not looking at the flowers or the champagne or the elegant guests. She was looking at him, Brandon Mitchell. He stood near the center of the room, surrounded by people who clearly wanted his attention. But even in that crowd, he stood out like a king among commoners. Tall, broad shoulders, skin the color of rich mahogany. His head was clean-shaven, and it only made his features more striking. Strong jaw, full lips, and eyes that seemed to see everything. Those eyes. Destiny had seen photos of Brandon Mitchell in magazines and online articles. She had watched interviews where he talked about his business empire and his philanthropic work, but nothing had prepared her for seeing him in person. The man was absolutely magnificent, and tonight, Destiny Williams was going to make him hers. She smoothed her hands down the front of her gown. It was emerald green, floor-length, with a slit that showed just enough leg to be intriguing without being inappropriate. The fabric hugged her curves like it had been sewn directly onto her body. Her hair was swept up in an elegant updo, with a few curls left loose to frame her face. Her makeup was flawless. Her jewelry sparkled. She looked like a vision. She felt like a queen. This dress had cost her everything. Literally everything she had. But standing here now, watching Brandon Mitchell laugh at something someone said, watching the way his smile transformed his entire face, she knew it was worth every single sacrifice. Tonight was the night her life would change forever. Tonight, she would secure her future. Tonight, she would never have to struggle again. Destiny took a deep breath, lifted her chin, and began walking toward him. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with each step. The sound was steady, confident, purposeful, click, 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 like a heartbeat leading her toward Destiny. Ironic, really. People moved aside as she passed, their eyes following her with curiosity and admiration. She could feel their stares. She had been feeling stares like these her entire life. She was used to being the most beautiful woman in any room she entered, and tonight was no exception. Brandon Mitchell turned slightly, and his eyes found hers. Destiny's heart stuttered. He was looking at her. Brandon Mitchell, the billionaire, the most eligible bachelor in Atlanta, the man every woman in this room wanted, was looking directly at her. And he was smiling. This was it. This was her moment. Destiny was 10 feet away from him now. 8 feet. 5 feet. She could see the subtle gold cufflinks on his shirt. She could smell his cologne, something rich and woody and expensive. She was so close she could almost touch him. She opened her mouth to introduce herself, and then a voice shattered everything. Stop right there. The music seemed to stumble. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every head in the ballroom turned toward the source of the commotion. An older black man was pushing his way through the crowd. He was wearing a simple suit that looked out of place among all the designer labels. His face was twisted with anger. His finger was pointed directly at Destiny. That woman right there. He shouted, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. She is a liar and a thief. Destiny's blood turned to ice in her veins. No, 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 this was not happening. This could not be happening. But before she could move, before she could speak, before she could even think, another voice joined the first. She cheated me too. A small, elderly woman with gray hair pinned up tight was making her way forward. Her eyes were sharp with recognition. That girl took my money and left me with ruined garments. Then another voice. She stole from me. An older gentleman with a cane was pointing at her now, his hand trembling with emotion. She took advantage of my grief. The accusations came faster and faster. One voice layered on top of another. Names and faces from the past week suddenly surrounding her like ghosts. She thought she had escaped. Destiny stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom floor. Every single person she had deceived, every single shortcut she had taken, every single lie she had told, they were all here, they were all pointing at her. And Brandon Mitchell, he was watching the entire scene unfold with an expression Destiny could not read. His smile had disappeared. His eyes had grown serious. He was looking at her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. But there would be no solving this. No charm could fix this moment. No beauty could erase what was happening. Destiny Williams was standing in the middle of a billionaire's gala, being publicly exposed as a fraud. But wait, let me slow down, because I know you are wondering how she got here. How did Destiny Williams, the most beautiful girl in all of Atlanta, end up standing in this ballroom being called a liar and a thief by people she thought she would never see again? Well, let me take you back to the beginning, back to where this whole story started. And trust me when I tell you this. You are not prepared for what you are about to hear. If you have not already done so, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. Because this story is about to take you on a journey through laziness, desperation, deception, and ultimately, redemption. It is a story that will make you laugh, shake your head, and maybe even shed a tear. Now let me tell you about Destiny Williams. Destiny Williams came into this world looking like an angel. That is not an exaggeration or flattery. It is simply the truth. From the moment the nurses placed her in her mother's arms at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, people could not stop commenting on how beautiful she was. Her skin was smooth and dark, without a single blemish. Her eyes were large and curious, framed by lashes that seemed impossibly long for a newborn. Even her cry was somehow melodic. "This child is going to break hearts," the head nurse had said to Sandra Williams that day. "You better prepare yourself now." Sandra had laughed then, exhausted but happy. She had no idea how prophetic those words would turn out to be. By the time Destiny was 5 years old, she had already learned the power of her own face. A pout of her lips could get her extra cookies. A flutter of her eyelashes could make her father forget any mischief she had caused. A bright smile could make teachers overlook incomplete homework. By 10, she had figured out that being beautiful meant special treatment was not just possible, but expected. Store clerks gave her extra samples. Neighbors offered her first choice of candy on Halloween. Boys in her class fought over who got to sit next to her at lunch. By 15, Destiny Williams had never experienced the word no in any meaningful way. Her parents, Sandra and Thomas Williams, were successful entrepreneurs who had built a thriving catering company from the ground up. They worked 80-hour weeks. They sacrificed vacations and rest and personal time to build something that would provide for their family. And because they worked so hard, they felt guilty about the time they spent away from their only daughter. So they compensated. They compensated with gifts. They compensated with money. They compensated with a complete inability to deny Destiny anything she wanted. New clothes every month. Of course, sweetheart, the latest smartphone every year. Absolutely. A car for her 16th birthday. Why? From chores, responsibilities, and expectations. Naturally. Their baby girl should not have to struggle the way they had struggled. By the time Destiny graduated from high school at 18, she had developed two things in abundance. The first was her beauty, which had only intensified with age. Her features had sharpened into something almost unfair. High cheekbones, full lips, a body that turned heads wherever she went. She could walk into any room and become the instant center of attention without saying a single word. The second thing Destiny had developed in abundance was laziness, and not just regular laziness, extraordinary laziness, Olympic-level laziness. Destiny Williams had never washed a dish in her life. She had never swept a floor. She had never done laundry. She had never cooked a meal more complicated than pouring cereal into a bowl. She had never held a job. She had never volunteered. She had never contributed to the household in any way beyond existing and being beautiful. She spent her days sleeping until noon, scrolling through social media until dinner, and going out with friends until midnight. Her room was always a mess, but that was fine because someone else cleaned it. Her clothes were always dirty, but that was fine because someone else washed them. Her stomach was always full, but that was fine because someone else cooked the food. Destiny Williams had perfected the art of doing absolutely nothing. And her parents, bless their hardworking hearts, had enabled every single bit of it. But even enabling parents have their limits. The moment of reckoning came 3 months after Destiny's 24th birthday. It was a Sunday evening in late September. The Atlanta air was still warm, clinging to the last days of summer. Sandra Williams stood in the kitchen of their beautiful Buckhead home, watching her daughter through the window. Destiny was lying on a lounge chair by the pool, phone in hand, doing what she always did, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sandra turned to her husband, Thomas, who was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing financial documents for their catering company. Thomas, we have to talk about Destiny. Thomas did not look up from his papers. He knew what was coming. They had been having this conversation or variations of it for years. What about her? Look at her. Sandra gestured toward the window. She is 24 years old. 24. And she has never done a single productive thing in her entire life. She has no job, no skills, no ambition. She cannot cook. She cannot clean. She cannot manage money. She cannot do anything except look pretty and spend our money. Thomas finally set down his papers. He removed his reading glasses and rubbed his tired eyes. Sandra, we have been over this. What do you want me to do? Throw her out on the street? No, of course not. But we cannot keep enabling her like this. We are not going to live forever, Thomas. What happens to her when we are gone? What happens when she has to function in the real world without us there to catch her every time she falls? Thomas was quiet for a long moment. He loved his daughter more than life itself. The thought of her struggling, suffering, or facing hardship of any kind made his heart ache. But deep down, in the part of himself he usually tried to ignore, he knew his wife was right. They had created a monster. A beautiful, charming, completely helpless monster. What do you suggest? He asked finally. Sandra sat down across from him. She had been thinking about this for weeks, planning it, working out the details. We give her a test, she said. A real test. Thomas raised an eyebrow. What kind of test? We give her money, a significant amount, enough to live on for a year if managed properly. We tell her that this is her opportunity to prove she can take care of herself. We tell her that we will not be providing any more financial support after this. If she handles it responsibly, we know she has matured. If she wastes it, Sandra's jaw tightened. Then at least she will learn a valuable lesson, the hard way. Thomas considered this. It was risky. Destiny had never shown any sign of financial responsibility in her entire life. Giving her a large sum of money and expecting her to manage it wisely was like expecting a toddler to perform surgery. But what other options did they have? They had tried gentle conversations. They had tried hints. They had tried subtle suggestions. Nothing worked. Destiny was comfortable in her cocoon of laziness, and she had no motivation to change. Maybe this was the only way. Much are we talking? Thomas asked. Sandra took a deep breath. $40,000. Thomas almost fell out of his chair. 40,000? Sandra, have you lost your mind? Hear me out. $40,000 is enough to live on comfortably for about a year if she is smart about it. She could pay rent, buy food, cover basic expenses. If she gets a job, even a part-time one, she could stretch it even further. This is a real test, Thomas. A real opportunity for her to grow. Or a real opportunity for her to waste $40,000 in a few months and end up worse off than before. Sandra nodded slowly. Yes, that is also possible. But either way, she will learn something. Either she learns to be responsible, or she learns that there are consequences to her choices. Either way, she will finally be forced to face reality. Thomas sat in silence for a long time. The ticking of the kitchen clock seemed impossibly loud. Outside, Destiny laughed at something on her phone, completely unaware that her entire life was about to change. Finally, Thomas spoke. All right, let us do it. The next morning, Sandra and Thomas called Destiny into the living room. Now, you need to understand something about Destiny Williams. She was not a morning person. In fact, calling her a morning person would be like calling a vampire a sunlight enthusiast. Destiny typically did not open her eyes before noon. Her body seemed physically incapable of functioning before at least 11 o'clock. So when her parents called her downstairs at 9:30 in the morning, she knew something was wrong. She shuffled into the living room wearing pink silk pajamas that cost $400. Her bonnet was slightly askew on her head. Her eyes were puffy and barely open. She looked like she had been personally victimized by the sun. What is happening? Destiny mumbled, collapsing onto the couch. Why am I awake right now? Is someone dying? Sandra and Thomas exchanged glances. This was it. No turning back now. Destiny, your father and I need to talk to you about something important, Sandra began. Destiny yawned dramatically. Can it wait until a reasonable hour, like 3 in the afternoon? No, it cannot. Something in her mother's tone made Destiny actually open her eyes. Sandra Williams was not a woman who raised her voice often. But when she used that particular tone, that serious, no-nonsense, I mean business tone, even Destiny knew to pay attention. Okay, Destiny said, sitting up slightly. What is going on? Thomas cleared his throat. Destiny, you are 24 years old. I know how old I am, Daddy. Me finish. You are 24 years old, and your mother and I have realized that we have done you a great disservice. We have given you everything you ever wanted. We have protected you from every hardship. We have made your life so comfortable that you have never had to learn how to take care of yourself. Destiny blinked. Is this about the credit card bill? Because I can explain those purchases. This is not about any credit card bill, Sandra cut in. This is about your future. This is about the fact that you have no skills, no job, no ambition, and no ability to survive on your own. Destiny's face shifted into something resembling offense. I have skills. Name one. Silence. I know how to, I am really good at. More silence. This is exactly what we are talking about, Thomas said gently. Sweetheart, we love you more than anything in this world, but we have failed you as parents. We have made things too easy. And now it is time for you to learn what it means to be a responsible adult. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside the envelope was a check. Destiny's eyes locked onto it immediately. Her survival instincts might be non-existent, but her money detection abilities were finely tuned. We are giving you $40,000, Thomas said, extending the envelope toward her. This money is yours. You can use it however you see fit, but understand this. There will be no more money after this. No more paying your bills. No more covering your expenses. No more bailing you out. This is your chance to prove that you can manage your own life, that you can be the strong, capable woman we know you can be. Destiny snatched the envelope so fast her father's fingers were left hovering in midair. $40,000, she squealed, her earlier sleepiness completely forgotten. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She ripped open the envelope and stared at the check like it was made of solid gold. Her face was glowing. Her smile was blinding. In that moment, she looked genuinely happy in a way her parents had not seen in years. Thank you. Destiny jumped up and threw her arms around her father, then her mother. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I promise I will be so responsible. I will make you proud. Sandra watched her daughter bounce around the living room with a heavy heart. She wanted to believe those words. She wanted to believe that this would be the wake-up call Destiny needed. But deep down, she knew better. She knew exactly what was about to happen. Now I need you to stop right here and really think about this situation. $40,000. A young woman who has never worked a day in her life. No skills. No self-control. No concept of budgeting or saving or planning for the future. What do you think happened next? Go ahead. Drop your guess in the comments below. What Destiny did with that money is going to make you want to scream at your screen. Now let me tell you what happened. The first thing Destiny did with her $40,000 was move into her own apartment. Not just any apartment. A luxury high-rise in Midtown Atlanta with floor-to-ceiling windows, a rooftop pool, a fitness center she would never use, and a concierge desk in the lobby. The rent was $3,500 per month. For normal people, this would be cause for concern. For Destiny, it was simply what she deserved. She was beautiful. Beautiful people should live in beautiful places. Simple logic. The second thing she did was furnish that apartment. Now, a sensible person might go to IKEA or perhaps browse Facebook Marketplace for some affordable pieces. A sensible person might prioritize function over form and save money wherever possible. Destiny Williams was not a sensible person. She hired an interior decorator. She purchased a white leather sectional sofa that cost $8,000. She bought a dining table she would never eat at for $3,000. She filled her closet with designer clothes she did not need. She stocked her bathroom with skincare products that promised eternal youth. By the end of her first month of independence, Destiny had spent $19,000. $19,000. In 1 month, almost half of her entire nest egg, gone before she had even settled in. But Destiny was not worried. She still had $21,000 left. That was plenty of money. That would last forever. At least, that is what she told herself. The third thing Destiny did was hire help, because obviously she could not be expected to maintain this apartment herself. She could not be expected to cook her own food or wash her own clothes or clean her own bathroom. She was Destiny Williams. She had better things to do. She hired a cleaning service that came 3 times a week. $300 per week. She hired a meal delivery subscription that brought gourmet food straight to her door. $400 per week. She hired a laundry service that picked up her dirty clothes and returned them fresh and folded. $150 per week. She even hired a young woman named Crystal whose sole job was to run errands for her. Get coffee, pick up packages, return online orders, go to the pharmacy. Whatever Destiny needed, Crystal handled it. $200 per week. Do the math. Destiny was spending over $1,000 per week just on services. Over $4,000 per month. Combined with her rent, utilities, and endless shopping, she was burning through money faster than a wildfire through dry brush. But here is the thing about money. It does not care how beautiful you are. It does not care how charming your smile is or how perfect your skin looks or how many Instagram followers you have. Money obeys mathematics. Cold, hard, unforgiving mathematics. And the mathematics of Destiny's situation were brutal. Month 2 passed. Destiny spent another $6,000, month 3. Another $5,000. Month 4, $4,000 more. By the end of month 5, Destiny Williams sat down at her beautiful $8,000 dining table, opened her banking app, and felt her entire world collapse. Account balance. $623,476.23 out of 40,000. Destiny stared at the number until her vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, thinking maybe she had misread it. She closed the app and opened it again. She even turned her phone off and back on, like that would somehow change reality. But the number remained the same. $623. 47. She could not pay her rent, which was due in 5 days. She could not pay the cleaning service, who had already sent her 2 invoices marked overdue. She could not pay Crystal, who had been asking uncomfortable questions about when her next check was coming. She could not even pay for the meal delivery, which meant she was about to have to figure out how to feed herself. For the first time in her entire 24 years of life, Destiny Williams was broke. Actually broke. Not pretend broke, where you say you cannot afford something but actually you just do not want to spend the money. Really, truly, frighteningly broke. One by one, her support systems collapsed. The cleaning service stopped coming after Destiny ignored their calls for a week. Without them, dust began to accumulate. Dishes piled up in the sink. The bathroom, which Destiny had never cleaned in her life, developed a smell she could not identify. The meal delivery canceled her subscription. Without gourmet food arriving at her door, Destiny was forced to confront her kitchen. She opened the refrigerator and found half a bottle of expired orange juice, some questionable takeout containers, and a block of cheese that had turned an alarming shade of green. She opened the pantry and found a box of crackers, some instant noodles, and a can of soup she did not know how to heat up. Crystal quit when it became clear she was not getting paid. She did not even give notice. Just stopped showing up and blocked Destiny's number. The laundry service stopped picking up her clothes. Within 2 weeks, Destiny's dirty laundry had taken over her bedroom like an invading army. Clothes covered the bed. Clothes covered the floor. Clothes spilled out of the closet and formed mountains in the corners. And Destiny sat in the middle of all this chaos wearing the same pajamas she had been wearing for 6 days straight. Her beautiful apartment had become a disaster zone. Her beautiful life had crumbled to dust. And she had absolutely no idea what to do about it. She thought about calling her parents. She picked up the phone at least a dozen times, ready to beg them for help. But then she remembered. She remembered the conversations she had posted on Instagram about her independent lifestyle. She remembered bragging to her friends about how she did not need anyone's help. She remembered the smug satisfaction on her face when she had signed the lease for this apartment, certain that she had finally made it. How could she call her parents now? How could she admit that they had been right all along? How could she face the humiliation of proving that she was exactly as helpless as they feared she could not? She would rather starve than admit defeat. So Destiny Williams sat in her filthy apartment, surrounded by her failures, and cried. She cried until her eyes were swollen. She cried until her throat was raw. She cried until there were no tears left. And then, just when she thought things could not possibly get any worse, they did. Her phone buzzed. A notification from Atlanta Social, the city's most popular lifestyle blog. Normally, Destiny would have ignored it. She was in no mood for celebrity gossip or restaurant reviews. But the headline that flashed across her screen made her sit up straight. Billionaire BRANDON, MITCHELL 2 host exclusive foundation gala. Seeking a life partner with substance and character. Destiny's heart stopped. Brandon Mitchell. Everyone in Atlanta knew that name. Brandon Mitchell was the 32-year-old founder and CEO of Mitchell Enterprises, a technology and green energy conglomerate worth an estimated $5 billion. He had been featured on the covers of Forbes, Bloomberg Businessweek, and Essence. He had been named one of Time magazine's most influential people under 40. He donated more money to charity in a single year than most people earned in a lifetime. And he was single. Impossibly, inexplicably, unbelievably single. The article explained that his mother, Eleanor Mitchell, was hosting a charity gala at the Mitchell family estate. The event would benefit various community organizations across Atlanta. The real story, the thing everyone was whispering about, was that Eleanor Mitchell was using this gala to help her son find a suitable partner. Someone with substance and character, the article quoted her as saying. Someone who understands that true worth cannot be measured by appearance alone. Destiny read the article 3 times, then she read it again. A gala, at the Mitchell estate, where Brandon Mitchell would be looking for a life partner, a wife. Destiny's mind began to race. If she could get to that gala. If she could get Brandon's attention. If she could be charming enough, beautiful enough, impressive enough, she would never have to worry about money again. She would never have to work a day in her life. She would be set forever. A slow smile spread across Destiny's face. The first real smile in weeks. This was it. This was her way out. This was her salvation. But then she caught sight of herself in the mirror across the room. The smile vanished. Her hair was a disaster. Not cute messy. Actual rat's nest messy. Tangled and matted from days without proper care. Her skin looked dull and tired, probably from the instant noodles and crackers she had been surviving on. Her pajamas were stained with something she could not identify, and her apartment. Dear God, her apartment looked like a tornado had hit a garbage dump. She could not go to a Billionaire's gala looking like this. She needed a dress. A stunning, head-turning, conversation-stopping dress. She needed shoes. Elegant, sophisticated, expensive shoes. She needed her hair done, her nails done, her makeup done. She needed to look like the kind of woman a billionaire would want to marry. But all of that required one thing, money that Destiny did not have. She checked her bank account one more time, $623.47. That would not even cover a decent dress, let alone everything else. Destiny wanted to scream. The universe was dangling her salvation right in front of her face, and she had no way to reach it. But then a thought crept into her mind, a terrible thought, a desperate thought, a thought that made her stomach turn. What if she got a job? Destiny physically recoiled from the idea. Work, actual work with schedules and bosses and effort. The concept was horrifying. But what other choice did she have? She could get a job, just a temporary job, just for a few days, just long enough to earn enough money for a dress and shoes and everything else she needed. It would only be for a week or two. And then she would go to that gala, dazzle Brandon Mitchell, and never have to lift a finger again. Destiny sat with this thought for a long time. She hated it. She hated everything about it. But she was desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. The next morning, Destiny Williams did something she had never done in her entire life. She went out looking for a job. It was an experience that can only be described as traumatic. She did not have a resume because she had never needed one. She did not have references because she had never worked anywhere. She did not even have proper clothes to wear because all her nice things were in the giant pile of dirty laundry on her bedroom floor. She put on the cleanest things she could find, a wrinkled blouse and jeans that smelled questionable, and ventured out into the world. The first place she tried was a boutique on Peachtree Street. The manager took one look at her and asked if she had any retail experience. No, Destiny admitted. Cash register experience? No. Customer service experience? Not exactly. Experience at all? Silence. The manager smiled politely and told her they were not hearing at the moment. The second place was a coffee shop near Piedmont Park. The owner asked if Destiny knew how to make espresso drinks. She did not. Could she work early morning shifts? She could not. Was she comfortable being on her feet for 8 hours straight? The very idea made her want to cry. The owner thanked her for her interest and said he would keep her resume on file. Destiny did not have a resume to give him, the third place. The fourth. The fifth. Each one ended the same way, no experience. No skills, no hire. By late afternoon, Destiny was exhausted, discouraged, and seriously considering just giving up and calling her parents to beg for help. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. But then she turned a corner and saw it. A small restaurant tucked between a dry cleaner and a phone repair shop. The sign above the door said Jackson's Soul Kitchen in faded red letters. A handwritten paper was taped to the window. Help WANTED inquire within Destiny stared at that sign for a long moment. It was not a fancy boutique. It was not a trendy coffee shop. It was just a small soul food restaurant that had probably been in this spot for decades. But it was a job, and Destiny needed money. She took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The smell hit her first. Fried chicken, collard greens, sweet cornbread. The kind of smells that reminded her of holidays at her grandmother's house before she passed away. The restaurant was small but clean. Maybe 10 tables covered in checkered tablecloths. A counter near the back with stools bolted to the floor. Pictures of civil rights leaders and Atlanta landmarks covered the walls. Behind the counter stood an older black man with gray temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was wiping down the counter with a cloth, humming something that sounded like an old gospel tune. He looked up when Destiny entered. "Afternoon, young lady," he said with a warm smile. "What can I do for you?" Destiny glanced at the Help WANTED sign in the window, then back at the man. "I saw your sign," she said, trying to sound confident. "About the job." Man's smile widened. "Is that so? Well, you came to the right place. I am Henry Jackson. This is my restaurant, been running it for 42 years now. I am Destiny Williams. Nice to meet you, Destiny." Mr. Jackson set down his cloth and studied her for a moment. "You ever worked in a restaurant before?" "No, sir." "Food service of any kind?" "No, sir." "Work experience at all?" Destiny hesitated. She could lie, she could make something up. But there was something about this man's kind eyes that made lying seem difficult. "Really?" she admitted. Mr. Jackson nodded slowly, like this was exactly what he expected. "Well, that is all right. Everybody has to start somewhere. The job is not complicated. Prep work mostly, chopping vegetables, rolling silverware, helping keep the kitchen clean. You think you can handle that?" Destiny had no idea if she could handle that. She had never chopped a vegetable in her life. She did not even know what rolling silverware meant, but she thought about Brandon Mitchell, she thought about the gala, she thought about never having to work again once she secured her future. "Yes," she said firmly. "I can handle it." Mr. Jackson smiled and extended his hand. "Then welcome to Jackson's Soul Kitchen. Can you start tomorrow morning? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock in the morning." Destiny's soul left her body for a moment, but she forced a smile and shook his hand. "O'clock. I will be here." She had no idea what she was getting herself into. Now listen to me very carefully. What happens next is going to change everything. Destiny Williams is about to walk into Jackson's Soul Kitchen tomorrow morning with no skills, no experience, and absolutely no intention of doing honest work. She's about to make choices that will follow her all the way to the Mitchell Foundation Gala, all the way to Brandon Mitchell himself, all the way to the most devastating moment of her entire life. But I cannot tell you that story right now. What do you think Destiny is going to do when she shows up at that restaurant tomorrow? Do you think she is actually going to work hard? Or do you think she is going to find a shortcut? Drop your predictions in the comments below. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Let's continue the story. Destiny Williams had made a lot of mistakes in her 24 years of life. She had spent $40,000 in 5 months without saving a single penny. She had hired people to do things she should have learned to do herself. She had let her apartment turn into a disaster zone because she was too lazy to pick up after herself. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for what she was about to experience at Jackson's Soul Kitchen. The alarm on her phone went off at 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning. Destiny had not seen 5 in the morning since. Actually, she had never seen 5 in the morning. Not voluntarily, not while conscious. 5 in the morning was a myth, a legend, something that happened to other people. But here she was, lying in her bed surrounded by dirty clothes, listening to the most offensive sound in human history. That alarm was personally attacking her. It was violence. It was abuse. She reached for her phone with a hand that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her eyes would not open all the way. Her brain refused to form complete thoughts. Everything hurt. For a moment she considered just ignoring it, just staying in bed, just giving up on this whole ridiculous plan. But then she remembered Brandon Mitchell. $5 billion, a life of permanent luxury, never working again. That was worth getting out of bed for, that was worth anything. Destiny dragged herself upright. The room spun. Her head pounded. Was this what dying felt like? This had to be what dying felt like. She stumbled to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. The creature staring back at her was not cute. Her bonnet had shifted during the night, leaving half her hair sticking up at impossible angles. Her eyes were puffy and red. There was a crease on her cheek from her pillow. She looked like she had been in a fight with her bed and lost badly, but there was no time for a full beauty routine. Mr. Jackson had said 6 o'clock, and it was already 5:15. Destiny threw on the cleanest clothes she could find, which were not very clean at all. She splashed some water on her face, attempted to smooth down her hair, and headed out the door. The streets of Atlanta were quiet at this hour. Peaceful, almost. The sky was just beginning to lighten from black to deep purple. A few early birds were out jogging or walking their dogs. The whole city felt like it was still asleep. Destiny felt like she should still be asleep too. She arrived at Jackson's Soul Kitchen at exactly 6:03 in the morning. Not bad for someone who had never woken up before noon in her entire adult life. Mr. Jackson was already there, of course. The lights were on inside, and she could see him moving around behind the counter, preparing for the day ahead. When she pushed open the door, a little bell chimed overhead. "Good morning, Destiny." Mr. Jackson's voice was annoyingly cheerful. How was anyone this awake this early? It seemed unnatural. "Right on time, I like that. Come on back here and I will show you around." Destiny forced a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "Good morning, Mr. Jackson." He led her through the restaurant and into the kitchen. It was small but organized, with stainless steel surfaces and pots hanging from hooks on the walls. Everything was clean and in its place. "Now, today is going to be easy," Mr. Jackson said, handing her an apron. "I just need you to handle some prep work. Chop up these vegetables here. Onions, celery, bell peppers. We use them in just about everything. Can you handle that?" Destiny looked at the pile of vegetables on the counter. She looked at the knife sitting beside them. She had never chopped a vegetable in her life. She had watched cooking shows before, but only because the chefs were handsome. She had never actually paid attention to what they were doing, but how hard could it be? "Of course," she said confidently. "No problem." Mr. Jackson smiled. "Great, I will be out front getting the dining room ready. Holler if you need anything." He disappeared through the swinging door, leaving Destiny alone with the vegetables. She stared at them, they stared back. This was fine, this was totally fine. She picked up an onion and examined it like it was a foreign object from another planet. It was round. It was brown. It smelled like onion. Now what? She picked up the knife. It was heavier than she expected. The blade glinted under the fluorescent lights. She positioned the onion on the cutting board and tried to remember what she had seen on those cooking shows. You just cut it, right? How hard could that be? Destiny brought the knife down. The onion shot off the cutting board and rolled across the counter. She chased it down and tried again. This time she managed to cut it in half. Victory. But then she had to peel off the papery skin, and that was surprisingly difficult. Little bits of onion skin stuck to her fingers. The smell was getting stronger. Her eyes started to water. By the time she got the onion peeled, her eyes were streaming tears and her nose was running. She looked like she had just received devastating news. This vegetable was personally victimizing her, but she was not giving up. She started chopping. Or rather, she started hacking. The pieces were all different sizes. Some were huge chunks. Some were tiny slivers. None of them looked like the professional, uniform cuts she had seen in restaurant kitchens. But it was chopped, right? That counted for something. She moved on to the celery. Then the bell peppers. Each vegetable presented its own unique challenges. The celery was stringy and kept slipping under the knife. The bell peppers had seeds that went everywhere. By the time she finished, the cutting board looked like a vegetable massacre had occurred. But she had done it, sort of. Destiny stepped back and looked at her work. There were vegetables, they were chopped. Mission accomplished. Then she looked at the clock. It was 7:45. She had been chopping vegetables for almost 2 hours. 2 hours for 3 vegetables. Mr. Jackson appeared in the doorway. "How is it going back here, Destiny?" "Almost done." His voice trailed off as he surveyed the scene. The cutting board looked like a disaster zone. There were vegetable scraps everywhere. The pieces Destiny had cut were wildly inconsistent. Some chunks were so big they could choke a person. Some slivers were so thin they were practically transparent. And Destiny herself looked like she had been through a war. Her eyes were still red from the onion. There was celery in her hair somehow. Her apron was covered in vegetable juice. Mr. Jackson blinked, then he blinked again. "Well," he said slowly, "that is something." Destiny's heart sank. She knew she had failed. She knew her chopping was terrible. She knew any normal person would have done this in 30 minutes, but Mr. Jackson just smiled gently. "Tell you what, why don't you take a little break, get some water, catch your breath? Then I will show you something else you can help with. Relief washed over Destiny. He was not firing her. He was not yelling at her. He was just being kind. It made her feel strange, almost guilty. But she pushed that feeling aside and nodded. Okay, Mr. Jackson, thank you. The next task Mr. Jackson gave her was rolling silverware. He showed her how to do it. You take a napkin, lay it flat, place a fork and knife in the center, and roll it up into a neat little bundle. Then you secure it with a paper ring. Simple. Easy. Even a child could do it. Destiny watched him demonstrate 3 times. Then she tried it herself. Her first roll was loose and sloppy. The silverware fell out as soon as she picked it up. Her second roll was too tight. The napkin ripped. Her third roll was somehow both loose and lumpy at the same time. It looked like a napkin that had given up on life. Mr. Jackson was busy with the morning customers, so he did not see her struggling. But Destiny knew that at this rate, she would be rolling silverware until midnight. And she had already been here for 3 hours. Her arms were tired. Her back was aching. Her feet were screaming from standing on the hard floor. And she still had hours to go. This was impossible. This was torture. This was absolutely not worth it. Destiny looked at the pile of unrolled silverware in front of her. There had to be at least 100 sets. Mr. Jackson had asked her to have them all done by the lunch rush. The lunch rush started at 11. It was currently 9:30. There was no way she could roll all this silverware in 90 minutes. Not at her current pace. Not with her complete lack of skill. But then a thought occurred to her. A terrible thought. A thought that should have made her ashamed. But Destiny Williams was not feeling shame right now. She was feeling desperation. And desperation has a way of silencing conscience. What if she did not actually roll all the silverware? What if she just made it look like she had? Destiny glanced toward the front of the restaurant. Mr. Jackson was chatting with a customer, his back to the kitchen. He could not see what she was doing. Her mind started racing. She could take the basket of silverware and arrange it so the rolled ones were on top. The loose silverware could be hidden underneath, covered by the neat rolls. As long as no one dug too deep, it would look like she had completed the task. It was sneaky. It was dishonest. It was exactly the kind of shortcut Destiny Williams specialized in. Her hands moved before her conscience could object. She quickly rolled about 20 sets of silverware. Sloppy, imperfect rolls, but rolls nonetheless. Then she arranged them carefully on top of the basket, creating a nice, neat layer that covered everything underneath. Underneath that pretty layer was a pile of loose forks and knives and unfolded napkins. Hidden, invisible. As long as Mr. Jackson did not look too closely, he would never know. Destiny stepped back and admired her deception. Perfect. When Mr. Jackson came back to check on her, his face lit up. Well, look at that. You finished already? I knew you had it in you. Destiny smiled sweetly. It was not so hard once I got the hang of it. Mr. Jackson patted her shoulder. Good work, Destiny, good work. Now how about you help me out front? We have got customers coming in for the lunch rush. Destiny followed him out of the kitchen, leaving her deception behind. She did not feel guilty, she felt smart. Why work hard when you could work smart? Why exhaust yourself when a simple trick could achieve the same result? This was survival. This was efficiency. This was exactly what she needed to do to get through these next few days, earn her money, and make it to that gala. If you are shaking your head right now, I completely understand. Trust me, I know. But save that head shaking because what Destiny does next is even worse. And if you are enjoying this story, this is the perfect time to drop a comment below telling me what you think about her choices so far. Is she clever or is she setting herself up for disaster? Let me know. Now back to the story. Lunch rush was chaos. Customers flooded into Jackson's sole kitchen like a tidal wave. The small restaurant filled up completely with people waiting by the door for tables to open up. Orders were flying in faster than anyone could keep track. The kitchen was hot. The dining room was loud. Everything was happening all at once, and Destiny was drowning. Mr. Jackson had asked her to help bus tables, clear the dishes when customers left, wipe down the surfaces, reset the table for the next guests. Basic stuff, but nothing about this was basic to Destiny. The plates were heavy and hot. The glasses were slippery and threatened to fall at any moment. The crumbs got everywhere. The tables seemed to multiply every time she turned around. Sweat was dripping down her forehead. Her feet were throbbing. Her arms felt like noodles. Every muscle in her body was screaming for mercy. By 2 o'clock, when the lunch rush finally subsided, Destiny was ready to collapse. She found a quiet corner in the kitchen and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Her entire body was trembling from exhaustion. She had worked more in the past 8 hours than she had in her entire life combined. and she had only made about $80. $80 for 8 hours of backbreaking labor. The dress she wanted cost $400. The shoes were $200. Hair and nails and makeup would be at least another $300. She needed a minimum of $900 to be ready for that gala. At $80 a day, she would need to work here for almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of waking up before dawn. 2 weeks of chopping vegetables and rolling silverware and bussing tables. 2 weeks of her body screaming in protest. The thought made Destiny want to cry, but then another thought crossed her mind. Mr. Jackson had been so impressed by her completed silverware. He had not noticed the deception at all. He had just seen what he expected to see and rewarded her for it. What if she could do the same thing tomorrow and the day after that? What if she could cut her workload in half by being clever instead of hardworking? She would still get paid. She would still earn her money. And she would not kill herself in the process. It was perfect. When 5 o'clock arrived and her shift ended, Mr. Jackson handed her 4 $20 bills. "You did good today, Destiny," he said warmly. "Same time tomorrow." Destiny took the money and smiled her most charming smile. "Same time tomorrow, Mr. Jackson. Thank you so much." She walked out of that restaurant with $80 in her pocket and a plan forming in her mind. She would come back tomorrow. She would do the bare minimum. She would deceive her way to the money she needed. And then she would disappear from Jackson's Soul Kitchen forever. Day 2 at Jackson's Soul Kitchen started exactly like day 1. The alarm screamed at her at 5 in the morning. Her body protested with every movement. She dragged herself to the restaurant like a zombie seeking coffee instead of brains. But today, Destiny had a strategy. Mr. Jackson greeted her warmly and immediately put her to work. Today's task was making cornbread batter. He showed her the recipe, demonstrated the technique, and left her alone in the kitchen to prepare enough batter for the lunch rush. According to Mr. Jackson, she needed to make at least 8 pans of cornbread. 8 pans, that was a lot of mixing, a lot of measuring, a lot of work. Destiny looked at the recipe card in her hand. Flour, cornmeal, sugar, eggs, milk, butter, baking powder, salt. She looked at the ingredients lined up on the counter. She looked at the 8 empty pans waiting to be filled. And she made a decision. She would make 2 pans of cornbread properly, just enough to show that she had done the work. Then she would fill the other 6 pans with batter that was not quite right. Too much flour, not enough eggs. Corners cut wherever possible. The pans would look full. The batter would look normal. But the cornbread itself would be inferior. By the time anyone noticed, Destiny would be long gone. She set to work. The first 2 pans were made carefully, following the recipe exactly. Well, as exactly as someone who had never baked anything could follow a recipe. The batter was lumpy in places and probably overmixed, but it looked okay. The next 6 pans were a different story. Destiny barely measured anything. She eyeballed the flour and dumped in whatever amount seemed reasonable. She used half the eggs the recipe called for. She skipped the butter entirely because it required melting, and she did not feel like dealing with that. The batter for these pans was thin and runny, nothing like the thick mixture she had made for the first 2. But once it was in the oven, who would know the difference? She slid all 8 pans into the large commercial oven and set the timer. Then she sat down on a stool and pulled out her phone. For the next 45 minutes, Destiny scrolled through Instagram while her substandard cornbread baked. She looked at pictures of the Mitchell Foundation gala from previous years, the glamorous dresses, the elegant venue, the beautiful people, and Brandon Mitchell himself, looking like he had stepped out of a magazine advertisement for expensive watches or luxury cars. Soon, she thought, soon all of this struggle would be worth it. The timer went off. Destiny pulled the pans out of the oven and examined her work. The first 2 pans looked decent. Golden brown on top, firm in the middle. Edible. The other 6 pans were a disaster. The cornbread was pale and flat. Some of it had not risen at all. Some of it was still gooey in the center. It looked nothing like the beautiful cornbread pictured on the recipe card. But Destiny was not worried. She arranged the pans strategically, placing the 2 good ones in front where they would be most visible. The 6 bad ones were pushed to the back, partially hidden by other items on the counter. When Mr. Jackson came in to check on her progress, he saw the 2 beautiful pans in front and smiled. Looking good, Destiny. Looking real good. He did not look at the pans in the back. He did not notice that 6 batches of cornbread were ruined. He just saw what he expected to see and moved on. Destiny collected her $80 at the end of the day and walked out with a satisfied smile. "This was too easy now, I want you to stop," and think about what is happening here. Destiny Williams is not just being lazy. She is actively deceiving a kind old man who gave her a chance when no one else would. She is ruining food that customers are going to pay good money for. She is taking wages she did not earn, and she feels no remorse whatsoever. Some of you might be thinking that surely there will be consequences. Surely someone will notice. Surely the truth will come out, and you would be right, but not yet, because Destiny is about to move on to her next scheme, and this one is going to hurt an even more vulnerable victim. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the next part of this story is going to make your blood boil. Now let me continue. After 3 days at Jackson's Soul Kitchen, Destiny had earned $240. It was not enough. She needed at least $900 for the gala. She needed to find more work. So on the 4th day, instead of going back to the restaurant, Destiny set out to find another opportunity. Mr. Jackson would wonder where she was, but she did not care. She had gotten what she needed from him, or so she thought. She walked through the streets of Atlanta, looking for help WANTED signs, looking for opportunities, looking for another victim. And that is when she found Mrs. Gladys Turner. Mrs. Turner ran a small alterations shop on a quiet side street near Piedmont Park. The shop had been in her family for 3 generations. Her grandmother had started it. Her mother had grown it. And now Mrs. Turner, at 71 years old, was doing her best to keep the legacy alive. The sign in her window said Seamstress Assistant NEED Destiny pushed open the door. The shop was tiny, barely bigger than a large closet. Fabric samples lined the walls in every color imaginable. A sewing machine hummed in the corner. The smell of fresh thread and old wood filled the air. Behind the counter sat an elderly black woman with silver hair pinned up in a neat bun. Her hands, though wrinkled with age, moved with incredible precision as she hemmed a pair of trousers. She looked up when Destiny entered, her eyes sharp and assessing behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Can I help you, young lady?" "Yes, ma'am, I saw your sign about needing an assistant." Turner set down her work and studied Destiny for a long moment. There was something about this woman's gaze that made Destiny uncomfortable, like she could see right through her. "Do you have any experience with sewing?" "No, ma'am." "Alterations?" "No, ma'am." "Any work experience at all?" Destiny hesitated. She thought about lying. But something about Mrs. Turner's eyes made that seem impossible. "I am learning," she said finally. Mrs. Turner was quiet for a moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled. "Well, I appreciate honesty. That is rare these days. The job is not complicated. I have a pile of clothes that need minor repairs. Loose buttons, small tears, basic things. I will show you what to do and you just need to follow instructions. Can you handle that?" Destiny nodded eagerly. "Yes, ma'am, absolutely." "Is $100 per day if you complete all the tasks I assign?" "Fair." $100 a day was better than 80. Destiny's eyes lit up. "Very fair. When can I start?" "Right now, if you are ready." Turner led Destiny to a small workstation in the back of the shop. There was a pile of garments on the table, each one tagged with a note describing what needed to be fixed. "This wedding dress needs a button reattached," Mrs. Turner explained, pointing to a beautiful white gown. "This suit jacket has a small tear in the lining that needs mending. This evening gown needs the hem taken up 2 inches. Think you can handle these?" Destiny looked at the garments. Then she looked at the sewing supplies. Then she looked back at Mrs. Turner. She had no idea how to sew a button. She had never mended anything in her life. She certainly did not know how to hem a dress, but she nodded anyway. "No problem, Mrs. Turner. I have got this." Turner patted her shoulder. "Good girl." "I have to run some errands. We'll be back in about 2 hours. Make good progress while I am gone." And then she was out the door, leaving Destiny alone with a pile of expensive garments and absolutely no skills to fix them. Destiny stared at the clothes for a long moment. The wedding dress was gorgeous. Pure white silk with intricate beading. It probably cost thousands of dollars. The button that had come loose was tiny, almost invisible against the fabric. The suit jacket was clearly expensive too. Fine wool in a deep navy blue. The tear in the lining was small, but noticeable if you looked closely. The evening gown was a deep burgundy color, elegant and flowing. The hem was supposed to come up 2 inches, according to the note. Destiny picked up a needle and thread. Her hands were shaking. She tried to thread the needle for 15 minutes before finally succeeding. Her fingers felt clumsy and useless. The thread kept slipping. The needle kept poking her skin. By the time she was ready to actually start sewing, 45 minutes had passed. She had no idea what she was doing. She picked up the wedding dress and examined the loose button. It was supposed to be attached to the back of the bodice, securing a decorative panel. Without it, the panel would hang awkwardly. Destiny attempted to sew the button back on. The stitches were uneven. The thread was the wrong color. She realized too late. The button was crooked, but it was attached. Sort of. She set the dress aside and moved on to the suit jacket. The tear in the lining was small, maybe an inch long. Destiny tried to sew it closed, but her stitches were so large and sloppy that the repair looked worse than the original tear. So she did what she had done at the bakery. She found a way to hide it. There was a decorative pocket square already tucked into the jacket's breast pocket. Destiny repositioned it so that it covered the poorly repaired tear. Unless someone specifically looked inside the jacket, they would never notice. The evening gown was the biggest challenge. Taking up a hem required actual skill, actual technique, actual knowledge that Destiny did not possess. She tried to figure it out. She really did. She measured the 2 inches. She folded the fabric. She attempted to sew a straight line. The result was a disaster. The hem was uneven, higher on one side than the other. The stitches were visible from the outside. The fabric was bunched in places where it should have been smooth. There was no way to hide this, unless... Destiny looked at the gown for a long moment. Then she made a decision that would haunt her. She carefully turned the dress inside out, so that all her terrible stitching was hidden inside. Then she hung it up on the rack, making sure the hem faced the wall where it would be less visible. When Mrs. Turner came back, she would see a dress hanging on the rack and assume the work was done. She probably would not examine it closely until after Destiny was long gone. By then, it would not matter. Destiny would have her money and would never return. When Mrs. Turner arrived back at the shop 2 hours later, she found Destiny sitting at the workstation, looking tired but accomplished. "How did it go, child?" Destiny gestured to the garments, now arranged carefully to hide their flaws. "All done, Mrs. Turner. The button is reattached, the tear is mended, and the hem is taken up." Turner walked over to examine the work. She picked up the wedding dress and looked at the button Destiny had reattached. Her eyebrows raised slightly at the uneven stitches and wrong-colored thread, but she said nothing. She picked up the suit jacket and checked the lining. The pocket square covered the repair, so she did not notice anything wrong. She glanced at the evening gown on the rack but did not take it down to examine closely. "Well," Mrs. Turner said slowly, "you got it done. That is what matters." She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out 5 $20 bills. "Here is your pay. Same time tomorrow." Destiny took the money quickly. "Actually, Mrs. Turner, I have some personal matters to attend to tomorrow, but thank you so much for the opportunity." She did not wait for a response. She was out the door before Mrs. Turner could ask any questions. $100 richer. And no intention of ever coming back, but Destiny still needed more money. $240 from Mr. Jackson. $100 from Mrs. Turner. That was $340 total. She needed at least $900. She needed another job. She needed another victim. And unfortunately, she found one. His name was Robert Freeman, and he was 76 years old. Destiny found him standing outside a community center near her apartment, looking confused and overwhelmed. He was holding a flyer about estate sale services, turning it over in his hands like he could not quite understand what it meant. Something about him tugged at Destiny's conscience. He looked lost. He looked sad. He looked like someone who needed help. But Destiny pushed those feelings aside. She needed money. And this man clearly had things that needed doing. "Excuse me, sir," she said, approaching him with her most helpful smile. "Are you all right? You look like you could use some assistance." Mr. Freeman looked up, startled by the attention. His eyes were watery behind thick glasses. His hands trembled slightly as he held the flyer. "Oh, hello there, young lady." His voice was soft, gentle, touched with grief. "I am just trying to figure out what to do with my wife's things. She passed away 3 months ago, and I have been meaning to sort through her belongings, donate them to the church charity. She would have wanted that, but I just cannot seem to." He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Destiny felt something uncomfortable stir in her chest. This man was grieving. This man was vulnerable. This man deserved kindness and compassion, but Destiny needed money. "I could help you," she heard herself saying. "I could come to your house and help you sort through everything, organize it all for the charity donation, whatever you need." Mr. Freeman's face lit up with hope. "You would do that? Really?" "Of course. I would be happy to help." "How much would you charge?" Destiny pretended to think about it. $150 for a full day's work. It was more than she had charged anyone else, but Mr. Freeman did not hesitate. That sounds fair. Can you come tomorrow? Absolutely. Just give me your address. Mr. Freeman wrote down his address with shaking hands and pressed the paper into Destiny's palm. Thank you, young lady. Thank you so much. You do not know how much this means to me. Destiny smiled sweetly. It is my pleasure, Mr. Freeman. I will see you tomorrow. She walked away with the address in her pocket and guilt gnawing at the edges of her conscience. But she pushed it down. She had to. The gala was in 5 days. She needed that money. Nothing else mattered. Mr. Freeman's house was a small but well-kept bungalow in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of Atlanta. When Destiny arrived the next morning, she found the elderly man waiting for her on the porch. He was wearing a cardigan despite the warm weather, and his face lit up when he saw her. You came, he said, sounding almost surprised. I was not sure if you would. I said I would be here, Mr. Freeman, and here I am. He led her inside, and Destiny immediately understood the scope of what she had agreed to. The house was filled with decades of accumulated memories. Photographs covered every surface. Knickknacks lined every shelf. Clothes still hung in closets. Books still sat on nightstands. And in the center of the living room was a mountain of boxes, half-packed and abandoned, each one labeled with a woman's handwriting. My wife, Margaret, Mr. Freeman said softly, following Destiny's gaze. She was always so organized. She started packing these boxes herself before she got too sick. She wanted everything to go to the church charity, said it would help folks who needed it more than we did. Destiny nodded, not trusting her voice to respond. I have been trying to finish what she started, Mr. Freeman continued. But every time I open a box, I see something of hers, and I cannot. His voice cracked, his eyes filled with tears. And for a moment, just a moment, Destiny felt the full weight of what she was doing. This man was not a mark. This man was not an opportunity. This man was a grieving widower who had lost the love of his life and was trying to honor her final wishes. And Destiny was about to take advantage of him. She could walk away, she could refuse the money, she could help him for real out of genuine kindness. But then she thought about Brandon Mitchell, she thought about the gala, she thought about the life she was so close to securing, and she stayed. It is okay, Mr. Freeman, she said gently. I am here now, I will take care of everything. Mr. Freeman smiled through his tears. Thank you, child, thank you. He retreated to the back of the house to rest, leaving Destiny alone with the boxes and the memories and the weight of her own choices. The work was supposed to take all day. Destiny was supposed to sort through every box, organize the items for donation, and prepare them for pickup by the church charity. Instead, she did the bare minimum. She opened a few boxes, shuffled some things around, and closed them back up without actually organizing anything. She moved items from one pile to another, creating the illusion of progress without making any real headway. She found a beautiful hand-knitted blanket that Margaret had made and shoved it into a garbage bag instead of the donation box. She found a collection of vintage jewelry and pocketed a small brooch that looked valuable. She found a stack of handwritten letters, love letters from Mr. Freeman to his wife from when they were young, and tossed them aside carelessly. The work that should have taken 8 hours took her less than 3, and when Mr. Freeman emerged from his rest to check on her progress, Destiny was ready with her performance. All done, Mr. Freeman, she said brightly. Everything is sorted and organized. The church can come pick it up whenever you are ready. Mr. Freeman looked at the boxes, now rearranged but not actually improved. He did not know the difference. He trusted her. He believed her. That fast? He asked, surprised. I work quick, Destiny said with a smile. Mr. Freeman shook his head in amazement. Well, I cannot thank you enough, young lady. You have been a blessing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Here is your payment. $150 as agreed, and a little extra for being so kind to an old man. Destiny opened the envelope. Inside was $200. $200 from a grieving widower who had nothing left but memories. $200 for work she had barely done. $200 stolen through deception and manipulation. Destiny's conscience screamed at her, but she took the money anyway. Thank you, Mr. Freeman, she said. Take care of yourself. And then she was gone, leaving behind a house full of half-sorted memories and a kind old man who would never know how badly he had been betrayed that evening. Destiny counted her money. $240 from Mr. Jackson. $100 from Mrs. Turner. $200 from Mr. Freeman. That was $540 total, still not enough. But the gala was in 4 days. She was running out of time. She needed to find one more opportunity, one more scheme, one more victim. But fate had other plans, because the next day, as Destiny was walking through the city looking for another mark, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Atlanta Social again. The headline made her heart stop. Mitchell Foundation Gala moved up due to SCHEDULING conflict. Now this Saturday. That was 2 days away, 2 days. Destiny's mind raced. She had $540, not enough for the designer dress she wanted, not enough for the expensive shoes, not enough for the professional hair and makeup she needed, but it would have to be enough. She would find a way. She always found a way. The next 2 days were a blur. Destiny scoured thrift stores and consignment shops until she found a green gown that almost looked expensive. She bought shoes that were slightly too small but looked elegant. She did her own hair, watching YouTube tutorials until her arms ached. She did her own makeup, making mistakes and fixing them until she looked passable. It was not perfect, but it was close enough. On Saturday evening, Destiny stood in front of her mirror and examined her reflection. She looked beautiful. Despite everything, despite the cheap dress and the uncomfortable shoes and the self-done hair, she looked beautiful. Despite everything, despite the cheap dress and the uncomfortable shoes and the self-done hair, she looked beautiful. This was it. This was her moment. Tonight, she would meet Brandon Mitchell. Tonight, she would charm him with her beauty and wit. Tonight, she would secure her future. Nothing could stop her now. The Mitchell Foundation Gala was being held at the Mitchell family estate in Buckhead, the wealthiest neighborhood in Atlanta. Destiny had never seen anything like it. The estate was enormous, surrounded by manicured gardens and ancient oak trees. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Valets in crisp uniforms rushed to park vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. Women in designer gowns floated up the grand entrance like angels descending from heaven. And everywhere there was money. Old money. New money. More money than Destiny had ever seen in one place. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The grand ballroom was even more stunning than she had imagined. Crystal chandeliers cast everything in golden light. Fresh flowers perfumed the air with roses and lilies. An orchestra played softly in the corner. Waiters circulated with silver trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Destiny grabbed a glass of champagne and tried to calm her nerves. She was here. She had made it. Now she just needed to find Brandon Mitchell. She scanned the crowd, looking for the man she had studied in countless magazine photos. Tall, clean-shaven head. Intense eyes, broad shoulders, and then she saw him. He was standing near the center of the room just as she had seen in her vision that first night. Surrounded by admirers but somehow still alone. His eyes swept the room like he was looking for something. Or someone. Destiny smoothed down her gown. This was it. She started walking toward him. Each step brought her closer to her destiny. Her heart was pounding. Her palms were sweating, but she kept walking. She was almost there. It was so close. She could see the golden cufflinks on his shirt. She could smell his cologne. She was reaching out to touch his arm. And then a voice cut through the music like a blade. Stop right there. Destiny froze. The orchestra stopped playing. Every conversation in the room died. Every eye turned to look at her. And standing across the ballroom, pointing directly at Destiny with fury in his eyes, was Mr. Henry Jackson. That woman is a liar and a thief. Before Destiny could react, another voice joined his. She cheated me too. Mrs. Gladys Turner was pushing through the crowd, her wire-rimmed glasses glinting in the chandelier light. She ruined a wedding dress and an evening gown with her incompetent work, then took my money and disappeared. And then another voice. She stole from me. Mr. Robert Freeman's gentle tone was thick with pain and betrayal. She was supposed to help me sort my late wife's belongings for charity. Instead, she moved some boxes around, took my money, and left. I found my wife's jewelry missing after she left. A brooch that Margaret wore on our wedding day. Destiny's hand instinctively went to her purse. The brooch was still in there. She had forgotten to pawn it. The evidence of her crime was literally on her person. The crowd was murmuring now, pointing, starring, judging. And Brandon Mitchell, he was watching the entire scene unfold with an expression that made Destiny want to disappear into the floor. Disappointment, disgust, and something that looked almost like sadness. The worst was yet to come. Because standing at the top of the grand staircase, looking down on Destiny like a queen surveying a peasant, was Eleanor Mitchell herself. The matriarch of the Mitchell family, the host of this gala, the woman whose approval Destiny needed more than anything. And she was not pleased. Bring that young woman to me, Eleanor said, her voice calm but carrying across the entire ballroom. 2 security guards appeared on either side of Destiny. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Her schemes had finally caught up with her. As the guards escorted her toward the staircase, toward Alina Mitchell, toward the judgment that awaited her, Destiny Williams realized something terrible. This was not the moment her life changed forever. This was the moment her life fell apart, and that is where I have to leave you for now. Destiny is standing in the middle of a billionaire's gala, surrounded by the people she deceived, about to face the consequences of every shortcut she ever took. What do you think is going to happen next? Will Alina Mitchell show her mercy? Will Brandon Mitchell ever look at her the same way? Will Destiny find a way to redeem herself? But before we get there, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment below telling me what you think Destiny deserves. Should she be punished? Should she be forgiven? What would you do if you were in her shoes? You will not want to miss how this story ends, trust me. Let's continue the story. Have you ever had a moment where you wish the ground would open up and swallow you whole? A moment where every single mistake you ever made came rushing back at once, crashing into you like a tidal wave of shame and regret. A moment where you looked around and realized that every eye in the room was staring at you with the same expression: disappointment, disgust, pity. That is exactly where Destiny Williams was standing right now. In the middle of the most glamorous ballroom she had ever seen, surrounded by the wealthiest and most influential people in Atlanta, being escorted by 2 security guards toward the grand staircase, where Alina Mitchell stood looking down at her like a judge about to deliver a verdict. Destiny's legs felt like they were made of water. Each step was a battle. Each breath was a struggle. Her beautiful green gown, the one she had worked so hard to afford, the one she had thought would change her life forever, suddenly felt like a costume, a disguise, a lie wrapped in cheap fabric and desperate hope. The ballroom was completely silent, no music, no conversation, no laughter, just the sound of Destiny's heels clicking against the marble floor. Click, click, click. Like a countdown to her own destruction, she could feel every single eye on her. Hundreds of guests, all watching her walk of shame. Some looked disgusted. Some looked amused. Some looked away entirely, embarrassed on her behalf, and Brandon Mitchell, he was still standing where she had last seen him, near the center of the room. His arms were crossed over his broad chest. His jaw was tight. His eyes were fixed on Destiny with an expression she could not bear to look at for more than a second. She had imagined those eyes looking at her with admiration, with desire, with love. Instead, they were looking at her with something far worse: understanding. Like he could see exactly who she was. Not the beautiful woman in the green dress. Not the charming, confident girl who had walked into this ballroom with her chin held high. But the real Destiny Williams, the lazy one, the dishonest one. The one who took shortcuts and cheated good people and stole from a grieving old man. That Destiny, the real one, she wanted to die. But death would have been too kind. Instead, she had to keep walking. The security guards stopped at the base of the grand staircase. Alina Mitchell stood at the top, 7 marble steps above Destiny, looking down at her with the calm, measured expression of a woman who had seen everything life had to offer and was no longer surprised by any of it. Alina Mitchell was 61 years old, but she carried herself like a woman half that age. Her silver-streaked hair was swept back in an elegant chignon. Her gown was midnight blue, simple but clearly expensive. Diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. Her posture was perfect. Her presence was commanding. This was a woman who had built an empire alongside her late husband. A woman who had raised a billionaire son. A woman who had donated more money to charitable causes than most people would ever earn in their lifetimes. And right now, this woman was looking at Destiny Williams like she was something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of her shoe. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Then Alina spoke. "Young lady." Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. In that silence, even a whisper would have sounded like thunder. "Do you know why I host this gala every year?" Destiny's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Host this gala to celebrate people who contribute to their communities," Alina continued. "People who work hard. People who serve others. People who understand that true worth is not measured by the dress you wear or the face you were born with, but by the content of your character." Each word landed on Destiny like a physical blow. "Tonight, I have heard some very troubling things about you." Alina's gaze shifted to Mr. Jackson, who was standing near the front of the crowd, his arms folded, his expression stern. "Mr. Jackson, please share your experience." Mr. Henry Jackson stepped forward. In this grand ballroom, surrounded by billionaires and socialites, he looked out of place in his simple suit. But when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a man who had earned every single thing he had ever owned through honest labor. "I gave this young woman a job at my restaurant," Mr. Jackson said, his voice steady but heavy with disappointment. "Jackson's Soul Kitchen. I have been running that place for 42 years. Built it from nothing with my own 2 hands. When she came in looking for work, I did not turn her away. I gave her a chance." He paused and shook his head slowly. "She repaid my kindness with deception. She hid unfinished work. She rolled silverware halfway and covered the rest to make it look complete. She made cornbread batter wrong on purpose, ruining 6 pans out of 8. I served that cornbread to my customers, Mrs. Mitchell. Loyal customers who have been coming to my restaurant for decades. Some of them got sick. Others complained about the taste and have not come back since." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Destiny's stomach turned. She had not thought about the customers. She had not considered that real people would eat that terrible cornbread. She had only been thinking about herself. "She took my money," Mr. Jackson continued. "And she never came back, never called, never apologized, just disappeared like I meant nothing." His voice cracked slightly on that last word, nothing. Alina nodded slowly, then turned to Mrs. Turner. "Mrs. Turner." The elderly seamstress stepped forward. Despite her small stature, she commanded attention. Her silver hair gleamed under the chandeliers. Her eyes were sharp and clear behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "I run an alterations shop," Mrs. Turner said, her voice crisp and precise. 3 generations of Turner women have run that shop. My grandmother started it in 1952. It is my family's legacy." She paused and looked directly at Destiny. "This young woman came to me asking for work. I showed her what needed to be done, gave her clear instructions, left her alone to handle the tasks." Mrs. Turner's jaw tightened. "When I came back, she told me everything was finished. I paid her $100. It was not until the next day that I discovered the truth." Crowd leaned in. Wedding dress she was supposed to fix. The button she reattached fell off within hours. But worse than that, she used the wrong color thread. The customer, a young bride named Angela, was devastated. She cried in my shop for 30 minutes because her wedding was in 3 days and her dress was damaged. A woman in the crowd gasped. "Suit jacket." She did not actually mend the tear. She just covered it with a pocket square and hoped no one would notice. The customer found out when he put the jacket on for a business meeting and the lining ripped completely. Turner's voice grew harder. "And the evening gown? She butchered the hem so badly that the dress was unwearable. That gown belonged to a woman celebrating her 50th wedding anniversary. She had picked it out months in advance. It was supposed to be special, and this girl destroyed it." Turner pointed at Destiny, her finger steady as an arrow. "She took my money. She damaged my reputation. She hurt my customers, and she never came back to face what she had done." Murmur in the crowd grew louder. Destiny could feel tears burning in her eyes. Each testimony was like a mirror being held up to her face, forcing her to see herself clearly for the first time. And she did not like what she saw, but the worst was yet to come. Alina turned to the final accuser. "Mr. Freeman." Robert Freeman stepped forward slowly. He was the oldest of the 3, and he moved with the careful deliberation of a man who had learned that life was fragile. His cane tapped softly against the marble floor. His eyes were red-rimmed. His lips trembled. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but every single person in that ballroom heard him. "My wife Margaret died 3 months ago." Room went completely still. "We were married for 53 years. 53 years of loving each other, of building a life together, of raising children and grandchildren and growing old side by side." He paused. His hand tightened on his cane. "Before she passed, Margaret started packing up her things. She wanted them donated to the church charity. She said there were people out there who needed those things more than she did. That was Margaret, always thinking about others, even when she was dying." A woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes. "After she was gone, I could not bring myself to finish what she started. Every box I opened, every item I touched, it all smelled like her. It all reminded me of her. I was drowning in grief." Mr. Freeman looked at Destiny now. His eyes were not angry, they were not hateful, they were just sad. "Then this young woman offered to help me. She seemed kind. She seemed genuine. I trusted her." He paused. "She came to my house. She was supposed to sort through everything. Organize it for the charity, honor my wife's wishes." His voice wavered. "Instead, she moved some boxes around. She shuffled things from one pile to another without actually doing anything. She was in my house for less than 3 hours before she told me she was finished." Mr. Freeman reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small photograph. And when she left, she took something, a brooch, a small gold brooch with a sapphire stone. It was not worth much money, maybe $50. But Margaret wore it on our wedding day. She wore it when each of our children was born. She wore it on every anniversary. That brooch was the most precious thing I owned. His voice broke. And this young woman stole it from me. Ballroom erupted, not with shouting or anger, but with something worse, disappointment. A collective, overwhelming wave of disappointment that crashed over Destiny like cold water. She stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her face, utterly destroyed. Every lie she had told. Every shortcut she had taken. Every person she had deceived. It was all out in the open now. There was nowhere to hide. If you are watching this story right now and you are feeling something, whether it is anger or sympathy or frustration or sadness, I want you to drop a comment below. Tell me what you are feeling. Because this moment right here, this is the moment that changes everything. And I promise you, you are not ready for what comes next. Stay with me. Eleanor Mitchell descended the staircase slowly. One step at a time, each step deliberate, each step carrying the weight of judgment. When she reached the bottom, she stood directly in front of Destiny. They were face to face now. Eleanor was taller by several inches, and she used every bit of that height to look down at the trembling young woman before her. "Young lady," Eleanor said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I have heard what these good people have to say. Now I want to hear from you." Destiny looked up through tear-blurred eyes. "Do you deny any of what they have said?" Destiny opened her mouth. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to lie. She wanted to make excuses, to explain away her behavior, to convince everyone that it was not as bad as it sounded. But the words would not come. Because for the first time in her life, Destiny Williams could not find a shortcut. There was no trick to get out of this, no deception that could save her, no beauty that could distract from the ugliness of what she had done. "No," Destiny whispered. "I do not deny it." Eleanor studied her for a long moment. "You came to this gala hopping to meet my son, hopping to impress him with your beauty, hopping to secure a future of luxury and ease without having to earn it." It was not a question, but Destiny answered anyway. "Yes." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Let me tell you something about my son. Brandon Mitchell built his company from the ground up. He started with nothing but an idea and the willingness to work 18-hour days. He slept on the floor of his first office for 2 years because he could not afford an apartment. He was rejected by investors 112 times before someone finally believed in him." She paused to let those words sink in. "My son does not need a beautiful woman. He has had beautiful women throwing themselves at him since he was 16 years old. What my son needs is a partner, someone with character, someone with integrity. Someone who understands that true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the content of your heart." Eleanor straightened her already perfect posture. "You, young lady, have shown none of those qualities tonight. You have shown laziness, dishonesty, and a complete disregard for the people who tried to help you." She took a step closer to Destiny. "A woman who would steal a brooch from a grieving widower is not a woman who belongs in this family. A woman who would ruin a bride's wedding dress through carelessness is not a woman who deserves the Mitchell name. A woman who would cheat a hardworking restaurant owner who gave her a chance is not a woman my son would ever want by his side." Each sentence was a nail in the coffin of Destiny's dreams. "You are not welcome at this gala," Eleanor said with absolute finality. "And you are not welcome in my son's life." She turned to the security guards. "Please escort this young woman out." The guards stepped forward. Destiny did not resist. She did not beg. She did not plead. She simply lowered her head and let them lead her away. The crowd parted silently as she passed. Not with cruelty, not with mockery, just with the quiet acknowledgement that justice had been served. As Destiny reached the grand entrance, she heard one last sound from behind her. The orchestra began to play again. The gala continued. Life went on. And Destiny Williams walked out into the cold night air, alone, humiliated, and utterly destroyed. The walk home was the longest walk of Destiny's life. Her shoes, the ones she had bought for the gala, were pinching her feet so badly she could barely stand. Halfway home, she took them off and carried them, walking barefoot on the cold Atlanta sidewalk. Her dress, the green gown she had placed all her hopes on, caught on a crack in the pavement and tore from the knee down. She did not bother to fix it. She just kept walking, dragging the ruined fabric behind her. Her makeup was streaked across her face. Her carefully styled hair was falling apart. She looked like a ghost of the woman who had walked into that ballroom just 2 hours ago. But it was not the cold or the ruined dress or the aching feet that hurt the most. It was the faces, Mr. Jackson's face. The disappointment of a man who had given her a chance, Mrs. Turner's face. The anger of a woman whose family legacy she had disrespected, Mr. Freeman's face. The sadness of a man who had trusted her with his wife's memory, and Brandon Mitchell's face. That look of understanding. Like he could see right through her. Like he knew exactly who she was. Destiny made it back to her apartment somehow. She could not remember the walk clearly. It was all a blur of cold air and hot tears and the sound of her own breathing. She unlocked her door and stepped inside. The apartment was exactly as she had left it, dirty, chaotic, a perfect reflection of the person she had become. Destiny stood in the middle of her living room and looked around at the mess. The dirty dishes. The piles of laundry. The empty takeout containers. The dust on every surface. The stale smell that had become so familiar she barely noticed it anymore. This was her life. This was what she had made of herself, 24 years old. No money, no skills, no job, no friends, no self-respect, nothing. She was nothing. Destiny sank to the floor, the cold hardwood pressed against her bare knees. The torn green dress pooled around her like a deflated dream, and for the second time that night, she cried. But these tears were different from the ones she had shed at the gala. Those tears had been tears of humiliation, tears of embarrassment, tears of being caught. These tears were something else entirely. These tears were for Mr. Jackson, who had given her a chance and been repaid with lies. These tears were for Mrs. Turner, whose customers had suffered because of her laziness. These tears were for Mr. Freeman, whose wife's precious brooch was still sitting in her purse like evidence of her cruelty. These tears were for herself, for the person she could have been, for the potential she had wasted, for the life she had thrown away because she was too lazy and too dishonest to build something real. Destiny cried until she had nothing left. And then she sat in the silence and made a decision, the most important decision of her entire life. She was going to change, not for Brandon Mitchell, not for her parents, not for anyone else, for herself. Because she finally understood that no amount of beauty could compensate for an ugly character. No amount of charm could cover up dishonesty. No amount of scheming could replace real, honest, hard work. She understood it now. She understood it completely. And the understanding hurt more than anything she had ever experienced. But it was also, strangely, the most freeing thing she had ever felt the next morning. Destiny Williams woke up at 5 o'clock, not because an alarm forced her. Not because she had somewhere to be, but because she chose to. She stood up from the floor where she had fallen asleep, still wearing the torn green dress. She peeled it off and dropped it in the trash. She would never wear it again. She would never want to. Then she looked around her apartment, really looked at it. For the first time, she did not see a mess that someone else should clean up. She saw a mess that she had created. Every dirty dish was her dish. Every pile of dirty clothes was her clothes. Every speck of dust was her responsibility. And so she started cleaning, not because someone was paying her, not because someone was watching, not because she had an ulterior motive, but because it needed to be done. And for the first time in her life, she was going to do it herself. It took her 7 hours. 7 grueling, exhausting, back-breaking hours. She washed every dish by hand because she did not know how to use the dishwasher. She scrubbed the counters until her arms ached. She mopped the floors on her hands and knees. She cleaned the bathroom until it sparkled. She gathered every piece of dirty laundry into bags and carried them to the laundromat down the street, where she sat for 3 hours learning how to operate a washing machine. It was hard. It was humbling. It was the most productive day of her entire life. When she was finished, Destiny stood in the middle of her apartment and looked around. It was clean, truly clean, and she had done it herself. A small, quiet sense of pride bloomed in her chest. Not the false pride of fooling someone, not the hollow satisfaction of getting away with a scheme, but real pride. The kind that comes from doing something difficult and doing it right. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, and she wanted more of it. The next morning at 5:45 a.m., Destiny Williams stood outside Jackson's Soul Kitchen. The restaurant was not open yet. The lights were off. The closed sign hung in the window, but she could see movement inside, a shadow passing behind the counter. Mr. Jackson preparing for another day. Another day of honest work in the restaurant he had built with his own 2 hands. Destiny's heart was pounding, not with excitement, with fear. What if he turned her away? What if he called the police? What if he looked at her with that same disappointment she had seen at the gala? She almost turned around. She almost walked away. But she thought about who she wanted to become, And that person would not run. Destiny knocked on the door. The movement inside stopped. A moment later, Mr. Jackson appeared at the door, his wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, his apron already tied around his waist. When he saw who was standing outside, his expression changed. Surprise, suspicion, and underneath both of those, something that might have been curiosity. "Destiny Williams," he said slowly, "you have some nerve showing up here." "I know," Destiny said softly. "I know I do. After what you did, after what happened at that gala. I know, Mr. Jackson, I know what I did, and I am not here to make excuses." Mr. Jackson crossed his arms. "Then what are you here for?" Destiny took a deep breath. "I am here to work. For free. For as long as it takes to make up for what I did to you." Mr. Jackson stared at her. "You want to work for free?" "Yes, sir." "Pay, no pay." "Why?" Destiny's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. "Because I owe you, Mr. Jackson. You gave me a chance when nobody else would. You treated me with kindness and respect. And I repaid you by lying to your face and ruining your food. Your customers got sick because of me. Your reputation suffered because of me. And I never even said sorry." She paused. "I am saying sorry now, and I know words are not enough, so I am offering my actions instead. Let me work for you for free, no tricks, no shortcuts, just real honest work. I will chop every vegetable. I will roll every piece of silverware. I will mop every floor. Whatever you need, I will do it. And I will do it right." Mr. Jackson studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. Destiny held her breath. Then slowly the old man stepped aside and opened the door wider. "In here," he said gruffly. "And do not make me regret this." Destiny exhaled. "Thank you, Mr. Jackson." "Not thank me yet. You are going to earn every bit of my forgiveness, starting right now." And she did earn it. She earned it one day at a time, one chopped onion at a time, one rolled set of silverware at a time, one mopped floor at a time. The first week was agony. Destiny's hands blistered from the knife. Her back screamed from bending over the cutting board. Her feet swelled from standing for 10 hours straight. She went home every night so exhausted she could barely climb the stairs to her apartment. But she went back every morning, 5:30, sharp. Without fail, she made mistakes. Plenty of them. She cut her finger chopping carrots on day 3. She dropped a stack of plates on day 5. She accidentally used sugar instead of salt in the cornbread batter on day 7 and had to throw out the entire batch. But she did not hide her mistakes. She did not cover them up. She did not pretend they had not happened. She owned every single one. "Mr. Jackson, I messed up the cornbread. I am so sorry. Let me start over." "Mr. Jackson, I broke 2 plates. I will pay for them when I can." "Mr. Jackson, I cut myself again, but I am okay. I can keep going." Mr. Jackson watched her with eyes that missed nothing. He saw the blisters on her hands. He saw the exhaustion on her face. He saw the determination in her eyes. And slowly, very slowly, his expression began to change, from suspicion to acceptance, from acceptance to respect, and from respect to something that almost looked like pride. By the end of the second week, Destiny could chop an onion in under 2 minutes. Her cuts were uniform and precise. She could roll a perfect set of silverware in 30 seconds. She could make cornbread batter from memory, no recipe card needed. By the end of the 3rd week, Mr. Jackson started letting her help with the cooking. Simple things at first, stirring pots, flipping cornbread, checking temperatures. But gradually he taught her more. How to season collard greens the way his grandmother had taught him. How to fry chicken so the crust was golden and crispy and the meat was juicy inside. How to make sweet potato pie from scratch. Destiny absorbed every lesson like a sponge. And something strange happened. She started to enjoy it, not just tolerate it, not just endure it, actually enjoy it. There was something deeply satisfying about creating something with her own 2 hands. About watching raw ingredients transform into a meal that would nourish someone. About seeing a customer take a bite and close their eyes in pleasure. It was a satisfaction she had never experienced before. Not from shopping, not from Instagram likes, not from lying by the pool. This was different. This was real. After she had been working at Jackson's Soul Kitchen for a month, Destiny went to see Mrs. Turner. The elderly seamstress was sitting behind her counter, sewing as usual when Destiny walked in. Mrs. Turner looked up and her expression immediately hardened. "You," she said flatly. "Me," Destiny replied. "Mrs. Turner, I am not here to ask for anything. I am here to apologize and to fix what I broke." Turner stared at her with those sharp eyes. "Wedding dress needed to be completely redone by another seamstress. I paid for it out of my own pocket, $300. Destiny reached into her pocket and pulled out $300, money she had saved by picking up extra work in the neighborhood. odd jobs, yard work, dog walking, anything she could find. "I want to pay you back," Destiny said, placing the bills on the counter. "And if you will let me, I want to learn how to sew properly so I can fix the damage I caused." Mrs. Turner looked at the money, then she looked at Destiny. "You are serious?" the old woman asked. "Yes, ma'am, I have never been more serious about anything in my life." Turner was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached under the counter and pulled out a needle and thread. "Sit down," she said. "We are starting with the basics." Over the next several weeks, Destiny learned to sew. Properly this time. No shortcuts, no tricks, just patient, careful work under the watchful eye of a master seamstress. She learned to thread a needle without shaking. She learned to stitch a straight line. She learned to attach buttons so securely they could withstand anything. She learned to hem a dress evenly, perfectly, beautifully. And she learned something else too. She learned that Mrs. Turner's shop was struggling. Business had declined in recent years. Fewer people got their clothes altered when fast fashion made it cheaper to just buy something new. The shop that had been in Mrs. Turner's family for 3 generations was barely surviving. Destiny did not say anything about it. She just started working harder. She stayed late to help with extra orders. She took on tasks that Mrs. Turner's arthritic hands could no longer handle. She even started bringing in new customers from the neighborhood, spreading the word about the shop with the same charm she had once used for deception. Mrs. Turner never asked her to do any of this, but she noticed. And she appreciated it. The hardest visit was to Mr. Freeman. Destiny stood outside his small bungalow for 20 minutes before she found the courage to knock. When Mr. Freeman opened the door and saw her, his expression was impossible to read. "Mr. Freeman," Destiny said, her voice trembling, "I came to give you something." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the gold brooch with the sapphire stone, Margaret's brooch, the one Destiny had stolen from a grieving widower. She held it out with both hands like an offering. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry for what I did. There is no excuse for it. You trusted me with your wife's memory, and I betrayed that trust. I will never forgive myself for it." Mr. Freeman looked at the brooch. His eyes filled with tears. He took it with trembling hands and held it against his chest. "Margaret," he whispered. They stood there in silence for a long moment. Then Mr. Freeman looked up at Destiny. "You came back," he said. "Yes, sir." "People would not have come back." "I had to, Mr. Freeman. I could not live with myself knowing what I had done." Mr. Freeman studied her face. He saw something there that had not been present the first time they met. Sincerity, real, genuine, hard-won sincerity. "Would you like to come inside?" he asked. "Margaret's things still need sorting, and this time I would like to do it together." Destiny's tears finally fell. "I would like that very much." They spent the entire afternoon sorting through Margaret's belongings, together, properly, with care and respect for every item. Every photograph was handled gently. Every piece of clothing was folded with love. Every memory was honored. And when they were finished, Mr. Freeman made them both cups of tea, and they sat on his porch watching the sun go down. "You know," Mr. Freeman said softly, "Margaret always believed in second chances. She would say that the measure of a person is not the mistakes they make, but what they do after they make them." Destiny wiped her eyes. "Margaret sounds like she was an incredible woman." "Was," Mr. Freeman said with a sad smile. "The very best." Now this is the part of the story where everything begins to shift. Destiny is not the same person she was at the beginning. She's becoming someone new, someone better. And if this transformation is touching your heart the way it is touching mine, I need you to share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Trust me, someone in your life needs to hear that it is never too late to change. Now let me tell you what happened next month's past, 6 months to be exact. And in those 6 months, Destiny Williams became a completely different person. She woke up every morning at 5 o'clock. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. She worked at Jackson's Soul Kitchen 5 days a week. Not for free anymore. Mr. Jackson had started paying her again after the first month, insisting that she had more than made up for her past mistakes. She helped at Mrs. Turner's alterations shop 2 evenings a week, learning new skills and bringing in new customers. She visited Mr. Freeman every Sunday afternoon, helping him maintain his house and keeping him company. They had become genuine friends, the old widower and the young woman who had once stolen from him. She cleaned her own apartment, cooked her own meals, did her own laundry, managed her own money. She was not rich, she was not famous, she was not married to a billionaire. But for the first time in her life, Destiny Williams was proud of herself. Really, truly, deeply proud. And that pride was worth more than any amount of money. She even reconnected with Monique Davis, her childhood friend who had tried for years to push her toward better choices. Monique had almost given up on Destiny entirely. But when she saw the change, really saw it, not just a temporary performance but a genuine transformation, she welcomed her back with open arms. "Girl, I never thought I would see this day," Monique said one evening as they sat together on Destiny's clean, organized couch. "You are like a whole new person." Destiny laughed. "I am not new. I am just finally becoming who I was supposed to be all along." "At you being all wise and philosophical." "Up, Monique." They both laughed. It felt good to laugh again. It was a Saturday morning in April, exactly 7 months after the gala, when something unexpected happened. Destiny was at Jackson's Soul Kitchen, helping with the breakfast rush. She was behind the counter, pouring coffee and taking orders with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Bell above the door chimed. Destiny looked up from the coffee pot, and her heart stopped. Standing in the doorway of Jackson's Soul Kitchen, wearing a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, looking nothing like the polished billionaire she had seen at the gala, was Brandon Mitchell. He was alone, no entourage, no security, no cameras. Just a man walking into a soul food restaurant on a Saturday morning. Destiny froze, their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Brandon smiled. It was a small smile. Cautious. Curious, like he was not quite sure what to expect. "Good morning," he said. "I hear the cornbread here is the best in Atlanta." Destiny's mouth went dry. "It is," she managed. "Would you like a table, please?" She led him to a corner booth, her hands shaking slightly as she handed him a menu. She could feel his eyes on her the entire time. "You work here?" he asked. "Yes, going on 7 months now." 7 months. He nodded slowly. "That is a long time." "It is." There was a pause. A heavy, loaded pause filled with everything that had happened between them, or rather, everything that had happened in front of him at the gala 7 months ago. "Owe you an apology," Destiny said suddenly. Brandon raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For coming to your mother's gala under false pretenses. For trying to charm you into giving me a life I had not earned. For being exactly the kind of person your mother warned you about." Brandon studied her for a long moment. "You know," he said thoughtfully. "My mother told me about you after the gala. She said you were the most beautiful woman in the room, and also the most dishonest." Destiny flinched. "But she also told me something else," Brandon continued. "She said she had heard you were working here, unpaid, for a man you had cheated. She said she had heard you were learning to sew at an old woman's shop. She said she had heard you returned a stolen brooch to a widower and helped him sort through his wife's belongings." He leaned forward slightly. "My mother keeps track of everything that happens in this city, Destiny, and she has been keeping track of you." Destiny's breath caught. She said something I have never heard her say about anyone before. "What was that?" Brandon's smile widened. "She said, that girl might actually be worth a second look." Destiny stared at him. Her heart was racing. Her mind was spinning. But something felt different this time. Because this time she was not trying to impress him. She was not trying to charm him. She was not trying to secure a future of luxury and ease. She was just being herself, the real Destiny. The one who woke up at 5 in the morning. The one who chopped vegetables and mopped floors and learned to sew. The one who had earned the respect of a restaurant owner, a seamstress, and a grieving widower. The one who had cleaned her own apartment and cooked her own food and built her own life from the wreckage of her old one. That Destiny. "Can I ask you something?" Destiny said. "Of course." "Are you really here?" Brandon looked at her with those intense, perceptive eyes. "Because I spent the last 7 months watching a woman transform herself from the inside out. And I wanted to meet her for real this time. Not the woman in the green dress who was looking for a shortcut, but the woman in the apron who gets up before dawn to do honest work." He extended his hand across the table. "I am Brandon Mitchell. It is nice to meet you." Destiny looked at his hand, strong, steady, open. She placed her hand in his. "I am Destiny Williams. It is nice to meet you too." And for the first time they were meeting as equals, not as a billionaire and a schemer, not as a target and a gold digger, but as two real people with real stories and real scars and real potential. It was not a fairy tale ending. There was no royal wedding, no instant happily ever after. There was just a man and a woman sitting in a small soul food restaurant on a Saturday morning, sharing cornbread and conversation, getting to know each other one honest word at a time. And that was better than any fairy tale. Now let me leave you with this. Destiny Williams started her story as the laziest girl in Atlanta. She had beauty. She had privilege. She had every advantage a person could ask for. And she wasted all of it because she believed that being beautiful was enough. That someone else would always take care of her. That shortcuts were smarter than hard work. She was wrong. But here is what makes her story worth telling. She learned, not overnight. Not easily. Not without pain and humiliation and tears. But she learned that beauty without character is a house built on sand. It looks impressive from the outside, but the first storm will wash it away. She learned that shortcuts do not save time. They steal it. Every minute you spend cutting corners is a minute you could have spent building something real. She learned that the people you deceive will always remember. But the people you serve will remember too. And she learned the most important lesson of all. Your worth is not determined by what you look like. It is not determined by who you marry. It is not determined by how much money you have, or what kind of car you drive, or how many followers you have on social media. Your worth is determined by what you do when nobody is watching, by how you treat people who cannot do anything for you, by whether you are willing to do the hard work of becoming a better person, even when it hurts. Destiny Williams finally understood that, and it changed her life forever. Now I want to ask you something. Is there an area of your life where you have been taking shortcuts? Is there something you have been avoiding because it is hard or uncomfortable or inconvenient? Is there a Mr. Jackson in your life who gave you a chance that you wasted? A Mrs. Turner whose trust you betrayed? A Mr. Freeman whose kindness you took advantage of? It is not too late. It is never too late. The same way Destiny stood outside that restaurant at 5:30 in the morning and knocked on that door, you can make that choice too. You can choose to do the hard thing. You can choose to be honest. You can choose to earn your way instead of scheming your way. It will not be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. If this story touched you, I want you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with a friend. Share it with a family member. Share it with anyone who might be standing at a crossroads right now, trying to decide between the easy path and the right one. And if you made it all the way to the end of this story, I want to say thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Drop a comment below telling me what lesson you took from Destiny's story. I read every single comment and I would love to hear from you. Subscribe if you have not already. Hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next story. Until then, remember this. Your character is your greatest asset. Protect it, build it, and never ever trade it for a shortcut. The end.